And hello and welcome to my podcast. My name is Melissa Snow, and today we're going to be talking about the Ohio State Reformatory, OSR. It says the Ohio State Reformatory, OSR, also known as Mansfield Reformatory, is a historic prison located in Mansfield, Ohio, in the United States. Was built between 1886 and 1910. And remained to operations until 1990, when the United States Federal Court ruling the Boyd concerned decree ordered to the facility to be closed. While the facility was seen in a number of films, including several while the facility was still opening, TV shows, music videos, and made from famous by the film Shawshank Redemption in 1994, when it was used for the most scenes of the movie. The Ohio State Reformatory is currently open to tours Thursdays, Mondays, Tuesdays, November 1st through March 31st, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week. April 1st, October 31st, 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Extended summer hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Memorial Day, Labor Day are offered in Saturdays and Sundays. The history of the Ohio State Reformatory begins in 1862. The field where the reformatory would be built was used as a training camp for the Civil War. Soldiers in the camp was named Camp Markel Bartley. Sorry if I can't say that right. Please forgive me. In honor of the Mansfield man who served in the Ohio governor in 1840s. In 1867, Mansfield was promoted as a candidate for the placement of the new Independent Penitentiary. The original name for it was to change the Ohio State Reformatory. The city raised to $10,000 to purchase 30 acres of land, and the prison and the state requires 150 acres and adjusting land to 20,000 whatever. And the cost of the facility was, wow, that's a lot of money to do this place. It says 1326769. The intimate Ohio State Reformatory was intended as just that, a halfway point between Boys Industrial School and Lancaster, Ohio, and the State Penitentiary, Columbus, Ohio, which was intended to the house Young's first time offered. Constitution began in 1886 and remained under Constitution in 1910 due to the funding program, which caused Constitution delays. The original design was Cleveland, Ohio, who used 3 architecture styles. It says all these names I do not know how to say. The exterior of the building, which is built brick and concrete, and designed in the Rumsey style, given the frontage of a castle that appears Schofield design in reformatory, and the unique style to help encourage inmates to become reborn back into the spiritual lives. The creation and the constitution of the entire building was instituted to well-known accredited FFF scholars. That's what it says. Whose names also appear on the cornerstone of the recorded as the superintendent and supervision architect on documented found there in 1891. The name of the change for the entire penitentiary Ohio State Reformatory. And September 15, 1896, the reformatory opened its doors to the first 150 offenders. The prison was brought to train from Columbus and put immediately to work in the prison's sewer system and 25-foot stone of surrounding the complex. Was presented with a silver dow in Noel by the governor of the state lavish seminary and thank him for his services. From 1935 until 1959, Arthur Lewis Gladden was the superintendent, intentionally a political approximately following the guilty work of the Mentary Dairy Company and the accounts. Gladden was respected by professionals and inmates alike. He implied many forms such as piped in radio, music, and cell blocks. Helen Brewer Gladden died and implied many reforms as piped radio, music, and cell blocks. Gladden's wife, Helen Brewer Gladden, died of pneumonia 3 days after as an accident on November 1950, where a handgun discharged when she was reaching into the jewelry box of the family's quarters. Died following of a heart attack, suffering in his own office in February 10, 1959. Over 200 people died in the OSR, including 2 guards who were killed during the escape attempts. Closure. The reformatory remained in full operation until December 1990, when it was closed via federal court order as a result of a prisoner class action suit citing overcrowding and inmate conditions. Boyd District Judge Frank J. Bisty and United States District Court of the Northern District, Ohio, ordered the prison closed by the end of December 1986. This under the knowledge of the Boyd constant decree. The closing date was moved in 1990 due to delays in constructing the replacement facility, the Mansfield Correction Institute, which stands to the west of the old prison, where the yard powered plant and the building once stood. Most of the grounds and supporting buildings, include the outer wall, have been demolished since the closing of 1995. The Mansfield Reformatory Preservation Society was formed. They have turned the prison into a museum and conducts tours to help fund ground rehabilitation projects and currently work in stabilized and building against further deterioration. The East Cell Block remains the largest freestanding steel cell block in the world, to 6 tiers high. So the Shawshank Redemption, in 1994 American prison drama film written and directed by Frank Durr, was based on a 1982 Stephen King novel. And so it just goes on and tells about the director and the prison. And this one says the West Virginia Penitentiary is the Gothic style prison located in Midwest in Virginia. Wow, you guys, you should look up the West Virginia Penitentiary. It is economic development considered in 1866, completed in 1876, and it's still standing to this day. And the history for this one, it just jumped right into this one, I'm sorry. The funding in 1863, West Virginia, second from Virginia, held the American Civil War. Consequently, the new state had a shortage of various public indications, including prisons from 1863 and 1866. Governor Arthur Bowman levied the West Virginia legislature and for the state penitentiary, but was repeatedly denied. One moment, I'll be right back because my cats are not being good. The legislature of the first directed him to send the prisoners to the other institute out of the state. Then they directed him to the existing county jails, which turned into the headquarters. After 9 inmates escaped in 1865, the local press took up the cause of the legislature, took action. On February 7th, 1866, state legislature approved the purchase of the land at Mudsville for the purpose of the construction of the state prison. Then 10 acres were purchased just outside the city limits in Mudsville for $3,000. Moundsville provided an attractive site and approximately 12 miles south of the Wheeling, West Virginia, which is the time of the state capital. The state built a temporary wooden prison nearby this summer and gave the prisoners. I just realized that I have a beanie on, and I was wondering why this is not loud in my ears. It's because it's covering my ears, and I just realized that. So, my bad. All right, so the first building of construction of the site was North Wagon Gate. It made its hand-cut sandstone, which was quartered from the local site. So they took it from that other site to this site, and the state used the prisoner label during the construction. So the state used the prison labor during the construction process of the work continued to the first place until 1876, when completed the total cost of the prison. In addition to the North Wagon Gate, there was no north or south Colebrook area and measured in 300 feet to 250 feet southern hall of 220 cells and 7 by 4 feet, and the north hall of the had kitchen during the area hospital and chapel. A 4-story tower connected to was administrating building measuring 70 feet to 75 feet, including the space of the female inmates and personal living quarters for the warden and his family. The facility official opened in the year, and it had position population of 251 male inmates, including some who helped construction the prisoner were they were incarcerated. Prisoners where they were incarcerated. After the phrase work began in the prison workshop and the secretary facilities operation. In addition of the construction, the inmates had other jobs to do, super and support the prison. In addition of the construction, the inmates had other jobs to do and support the prison. In early 1900s, some industries within the prison walls included carpentry shop, paint shop, wagon shop, stone yard, backyard, and blacksmith, a tailor, a baker, and a hospital. At the same time, revenues from the prison farm and inmate labor helped the prison facility and variety self-sufficient. A prison coal mine located a mile away from opened in 1921. The nine helped fill some of the prison's energy needing this in prisons and energy need to save the state and estimated $14,000 a year. Some inmates were allowed to stay in the mine camp under the supervision of the mine foreman, who was not a prison or an employee of the prison. Conditions at the prison during the turn of the 20th century were good, according to a warden report. Conditions of the prison during the turn of the 20th century were good, according to a warden's report, which stated that both of the quantity and the quality of the purchases of the material, food, and clothing have been very guarded, but steadily improving, while the discipline has become more neatly perfect and of labor strengthened. Education was a priority of the inmates during the time. They regularly attended class, construction, and for the school and the library completed in 1900s to help reform the education inmates. However, the conditions at the prison worsened through the years, and the facility would be ranked in the United States. So I've seen some videos on this, and it's a pretty cool prison. Like, it looks really cool. I'm sure it was terrible to live there, but on this other part it says top 10 most violent criminal facility list. One of the more infamous locations of the prison was in satanics of gambling, fighting, and Xing and recreation room known as the Sugar Shack. A notable inmate in the early 20th century was the labor activist Eugene V. Debs, who served the time from April 13th to 14th in 1919, which time was transferred to the Atlanta prison on charge of violating the Espionage Act of 1917. In 1929, the state decided to double the size of the penitentiary because overcrowding was a problem. The cells were too small to hold three prisoners at a time. Until the expansion, there was no option. Two prisoners would sleep on the bunks, with the third sleeping on a mattress on the floor. The state used prison labor again and completed the phase of the construction in 1959. The construction had held and been delayed by a steel shortage during the World War II. Total 36 homicides took place in the prison. One of the more noticeable ones was butchering of R.D. Wall, inmate Noble 44670, on October 18, 1929, after snitching on his fellow inmates. He attacked while heading to the boiler room by three prisoners with dull shives. Like, they shanked him, shives. In 1983, convicted multiple murders, Charles Manson requested to be transferred to this prison to the nearest to his family. He requested was denied. In 1979, prison break. On Wednesday, November 7th, 1979, 15 prisoners escaped from the prison. One of the escaped Ronald Truly Williams serving time for murder in David Lilly and Beckley Police Department on May 12, 1975. He managed to steal a prison guard's service weapon and escape, and upcoming reaching the streets of Mudsville encountered 23-year-old off-duty West Virginia State Trooper Phil S. Kenser, who was driving past the prison wall with his wife. Trooper Kenser saw the escapees and attempted to take action against them. The prisoner pulled him from his car and Wilson shot him. Trooper Kensley returned fire and fleeing suspect despite being mortally wounded. Williams remained at large for 8 months, sending taunting notes and authorities to making the FBI 10 most wanted list. During the time that he murdered John Bunchek, sorry if I do not say these names right. I don't know if I'm saying them right, sorry. In Scottsdale, Arizona, during the robbery, he was connected to crimes in Colorado and Pennsylvania. After shooting the federal agents of George Washington Hotel in New York City in 1981, he was apprehended and returned to West Virginia to complete several life sentences. Arizona had sought his extension for the extension of in a 28th of December 2024, he remains in the West Virginia custody. He's still alive, you guys? Wow. At time, Marshall County Sheriff Robert Leiter was very critical about poor police communications during the break. The sheriff's office and the located police did not learn about the escape for the state did not learn about the escape from the state police. They first held of it over the police scanner. It was a good 20 minutes before we knew about the escape. If somebody had notified us there is a good chance that the sheriff department and Moundsville police could have been on the scene while the prisoners were still on the block. He was also critical of the four-stated manhunt that followed when convicted murdered David Morgan and Ronald T. Williams along the convicted bad name I can't say on here. Hollard Growls Jr. remained at large. Communications have been very poor. I think they should keep the local law enforcement officers more informed. I have no idea what they were doing and what they have found. So there was a riot in 1986, and this is going to be talking about the riot. So January 1st, 1986 was the date of the most infamous riot of history of penitentiary of the West Virginia Penitentiary was undergoing many changes and problems, and security had become extremely thin in the area since it was a cons prison. Most of the locks in the cells had been picked and inmates roamed the halls freely. Bad plumbing and insects caused rapid spreading of viruses and diseases. The prison was holding more than 2,000 men and crowding was an issue. Another major contribution to the riot's cause was the fact that it was a holiday. Many of the officers were called off work, and the prisoners planned to conduct their uprising on the specific day. At around 5:30 p.m., 20 inmates known as a group called the Avengers stormed to the mass hall where Captain Glassock and others were on duty. Within seconds, the Captain Glassock, 5 other officers, and foot service workers were tackled and slammed to the floor. Inmates put knives to their throats and handcuffed them with their own handcuffs. Although several hostages were taken throughout the day, none of them were seriously injured. However, over the course of the 20-day upheaval, there was 20 days of this, 3 inmates were killed for assassination reasons. The inmates who intended the riot were not prepared to take charge of it. Danny Lohman, the average president, was quickly agreed upon and best suited for the task. The Avengers president was quickly agreed upon, but best suited for the task and negotiation with authorities and present-day demands to the media. Yet, Lehman was not a part of the 20 men who began the riot. Governor Arch A. Moore Jr. went to the penitentiary to talk to the inmates. This meeting set up new lists and rules and standards which the prisoners would be built and national and local news coverage. The story, well as the inmates were meeting the Governor Moore. Man, you guys, there's a lot that's happened in this prison. It shows the executor's chair. It says from 1899 and 1959, 94 men were executed in the prison. Hanging was the method of the execution unit. In 1949, the 85 men meeting unalivings were public. Being unalive were public until June 1931, on the date Frank Hayers executed murdering. On that date, Frank Hayers was executed for murdering his wife when the trap door beneath him was opened and his full weight settled into the new. He was instantly decapitated. Following the event, attending the executed Bud Parson from Logan County was buried in the prison cemeteries because his family refused to claim his body. Oh, that's so sad. Beginning of 1951, elections became the means of extension. An electric chair, nicknamed Old Sparky, used the prisons, was originally built by the inmates there. Paul Glenn. 9 men were executed for the state prohibited capital punishment entirely in 1965. The last execution carried out the state's electric chair was that of Elmer Burner. Electric chair was that of Elmer Burner. On April 3rd, 1959, the original chair is on display at the facility and included the official tour. The West Virginia Penitentiary is the end of my story, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your day and great week, and I hope to see you soon. Join me on my lives, and pretty soon we're going to be going to 2 overnights, so please join me, and I'll see you next time. And if you see me live, please come in and join me. Peace out, everyone. Bye.